Having already discussed two of the four Titan brothers who are personified as the pillars of the earth, today we take a look at the last two, Crius and Iapetus. Starting with Crius, who is almost certainly the least mentioned of the Titan brothers who played a role in Uranus' castration. Crius was seen as the southern pillar. His name can be translated to mean ram, an animal that was seen to symbolize the start of spring in the Greek year, as the constellation Aries was in the shape of a ram and was the first constellation visible in the sky during the season of spring. There is some debate as to what Crius was actually the god of. His association with the Greek zodiac has led many to believe that he was the god of constellations, and his symbol was that of a ram. He was married to Erebia, a daughter of Pontus and Gaia, and one of the earliest deities to be associated with the sea. Together they had 3 children, Astraeus, the Titan god of dusk, who would eventually marry Eos, the goddess of dawn, Pallas, the Titan god of warcraft, whose children are thought to symbolize victory, rivalry, strength and power, and lastly Perses, the Titan god of destruction, who would marry the goddess Asteria and father Hecate. There are no real mentions of Crius in the myths and stories of Greek mythology, so we can assume that he must have been amongst the Titans imprisoned in Tartarus after the war. And like so many of the elder Titans, their significance was mostly in siring the next generation, a generation of gods who would go on to play a larger role than all those that preceded them. The last of the 4 brothers left for us to discuss is Iapetus, the pillar of the west and the Titan god of the mortal lifespan. Iapetus' name was thought to mean pierce, and he was often referred to as the Piercer, a name that scholars have debated the meaning of for years. There are those who associate the term pierce with the spear, believing that Iapetus was a craftsman god. The opposing argument is that Iapetus was the god of the mortal lifespan, which also makes him a god of death. The term pierce in this instance would refer to the violent death caused from the wounds of a spear. When Iapetus thought that one's time had passed, he brought a violent death upon them. Iapetus married the Oceanid Clymene, and together they had 4 children, Prometheus, Epimetheus, Meniotius and Atlas. Their children would go on to feature in quite a few of the myths and stories of Greek mythology, and become extremely recognizable figures, with the exception of Meniotius, who in many accounts was killed by Zeus during the war, when the two encountered each other on Mount Triphyli. When Cronus defeated his father, Iapetus stood by his brother's side, and was considered quite an important figure, because he was believed equal to Cronus in terms of power. It's mentioned by both Nonnus, the Greek poet, and the Roman poet Gaius Valerius Flaccus, that at some point in the war, Iapetus fought Zeus in a fierce battle, and after defeating the Titan, Zeus then became the ruler of the cosmos, as there was no one left to oppose him. There's no doubt that Iapetus was an extremely powerful Titan, even being compared to Cronus in terms of overall status and ability. His confrontation with Zeus during the war is one of the very few documented events that we have that involve the Titans, but even so, much like Crius and the other elder Titans, Iapetus is somewhat overshadowed by the actions and achievements of his children. Having now heard the stories of the 4 brothers that represent the 4 pillars of the earth, out of Coeus, Crius, Hyperion and Iapetus, which one is your favourite? Are there any that you dislike? Are there any that you feel you associate with more than others? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Mythology and Fiction Explained.